The forest was unusually quiet that evening, the kind of silence that made even the smallest sound seem dangerous. Kai hurried along the narrow path, his small satchel heavy with herbs and roots he had gathered for his mother. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows that twisted like living fingers through the trees. Then he heard it. A sharp, piercing cry, high and trembling, unlike anything he had ever heard before. Kai froze, heart hammering. It sounded like someone, or something, was in pain. He strained his ears trying to locate it, but the forest seemed to swallow the sound, leaving only a strange, echoing hum in his chest. Without thinking, Kai ran toward the noise. He leapt over roots and ducked under low branches, following the desperate call. The cry grew louder, but now it was mixed with a low, eerie rumble, as if the earth itself was responding. His palms were scratched by brambles and his legs ached, but he didn't stop. Then he saw it. Half hidden under a tangle of glowing vines was a small creature, no bigger than a rabbit, trembling violently. Its scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, changing colors from silver to violet. Kai's breath caught. He had heard stories of forest creatures, strange things that wandered the woods at night, but he had never imagined something like this. Its eyes, wide with fear, glowed faintly green, and the moment their gazes met, Kai felt a strange pull in his chest, a tugging feeling he couldn't explain. The vines around the creature's legs tightened as it struggled. The more it tried to move, the more entangled it became. Kai's heart pounded. He couldn't leave it there. He pulled out his small knife, hesitating only for a moment before cutting carefully through the glowing tendrils. A sharp pain stung his fingers when a vine snapped back, but he ignored it. The creature flinched at the movement but didn't try to run, watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Finally free, the hatchling collapsed into his arms, shivering. Kai hugged it tightly, feeling its small body quiver against his chest. The cry it had made earlier was soft now, almost like a whispered hum that echoed in Kai's mind. He had never heard a sound like this, and it made the hairs on his neck stand up. Then the forest shook. Not just a tremor under his feet, but a heavy rolling vibration that made the trees sway violently. Kai stumbled, clutching the creature closer. A shadow moved above him, faster than anything he could identify, and a low growl reverberated through the air. He looked up and froze. The sky between the trees was dark, and something huge passed overhead, wings slicing through the fading light. Kai's pulse raced. He didn't know what it was, but it wasn't friendly. The hatchling whimpered in his arms, pressing its tiny face into his chest. Kai swallowed hard, forcing himself to think. Running blindly wouldn't work, he had to act. Spotting a thick tree nearby with roots forming a small hollow beneath it, he ran, ducking low as something streaked past above him, scattering leaves. He dropped to the ground, pressing the hatchling into the hollow. Its eyes shimmered, reflecting a soft green glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. Kai's own heart raced. He held his breath as the shadow passed, the low growl fading but leaving a ringing in his ears. For a moment the world was silent again, but it was the kind of silence that felt like it was holding its breath. Kai looked down at the hatchling. Its wings were too small to fly, trembling weakly, but even in its fear, there was something almost intelligent in its gaze. It blinked slowly at him, then let out a soft hiss that made Kai flinch. He realized it was trying to communicate. He didn't understand the sounds, but he felt the meaning clearly. "Help me, protect me." He nodded, though the creature wouldn't know. "I've got you," he whispered. His small fingers brushed its scales, and for a moment he felt a warm pulse of energy run through his hand, like the creature's heartbeat had reached his own. He swallowed hard. Something was happening here, something beyond his understanding, and it scared him as much as it fascinated him. Suddenly, a branch snapped sharply behind him. Kai whipped around. The shadows shifted again. This time there was no doubt. Something big, dangerous and fast was moving through the trees toward them. The hatchling hissed again, its tiny body pressing frantically against his chest. Kai took a deep breath, forcing his fear aside. He didn't know if he could fight it, or if he even had to, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't let this small creature face danger alone. He tightened his hold and whispered, "We're getting out of here. I promise." Above, the trees creaked, and the air seemed to hum with energy. Then, in a sudden flash of light, the hatchling's eyes glowed brighter, casting strange green patterns across Kai's face. The wind swirled violently, and for a heartbeat, the forest seemed alive, reacting to them both. Kai's stomach lurched. He looked up, and through the branches he saw a figure moving, massive wings, jagged and black, cutting across the sky. But then the hatchling pressed its tiny head to his chest, and the glow from its eyes shot upward, a streak of green light toward the dark sky. The shadow above froze mid-flight. The wind died. Silence fell. And then, faintly, almost impossibly, Kai heard a second cry, not from the hatchling but from somewhere above, echoing in the treetops, almost like the sky itself was calling his name. Kai's eyes widened. He clutched the hatchling tighter. What have I just stumbled into? Kai stayed frozen for a moment, his chest heaving. The forest had gone quiet again, but it was the kind of quiet that made him certain something was coming. The green light from the hatchling's eyes dimmed slightly, and it trembled in his arms, tiny claws digging into his sleeve. He couldn't stay hidden forever. Whatever had passed above, the shadow with the massive wings, was still out there. Kai knew he had to move, but moving wrong could draw attention. He scanned the ground, spotting a narrow path that cut through a small clearing. It was risky, open with nowhere to hide, but it led toward the ridge and maybe back to the village. He swallowed his fear and ran, keeping low, holding the hatchling close. The creature's wings flapped weakly, and every now and then it let out a soft, quivering hum that Kai felt in his chest. He tried to ignore the sound of snapping branches behind him, the heavy footfalls that weren't his own. Then he saw them. Two predators, larger than any wolf he had seen, with scales that shimmered black and red, were crouched among the trees at the edge of the clearing. Their eyes glowed faintly, and they tilted their heads toward him, calculating, patient. Kai froze, gripping the hatchling tightly. He couldn't outrun them if they attacked together. But he remembered the glowing fungus along the forest floor, the kind the elders said could blind small animals. An idea struck him. He dropped the hatchling gently into a small hollow near a tree and knelt, breaking pieces of the fungus and scattering it across the path. He picked up a sharp stick and waited, heart pounding. The predators moved cautiously, testing the path. One stepped on the fungus and bright spores exploded into the air. The creature shrieked, clawing at its eyes. The second predator hesitated, confused, and Kai seized the moment. He grabbed the hatchling again, sprinting toward a cluster of tall trees at the path's edge. He ducked low as the second predator lunged. The stick in his hand barely slowed it, but a sharp kick sent it stumbling into a root, giving him a few precious seconds. Kai's lungs burned, but he didn't stop. He knew if he paused, both predators would overtake him in seconds. Branches whipped across his face, cutting his skin, but he pushed forward. The hatchling clung to him, emitting a soft green glow that pulsed faster with each heartbeat. Suddenly, the forest floor dropped sharply into a shallow ravine. Kai skidded to a stop at the edge, looking down. There was no way to jump safely. The predators were closing, snarls echoing. His mind raced. He glanced at the hatchling, its tiny wings trembling. I can't let you die here, he thought. Then he remembered the hollow he had passed earlier, the one where a tree leaned over a stream. If he could reach it, he might use the terrain to his advantage. He darted sideways, zigzagging to confuse the predators. One lunged, missing him by inches, its claws raking the dirt. He felt a sting across his arm but kept moving, ignoring the pain. By the time he reached the hollow, he was breathing hard, sweat stinging his eyes. He threw himself and the hatchling into the shallow water, using the slippery banks to slide to safety. The predators skidded to a halt, unsure of the uneven ground. One let out a frustrated roar. Kai pressed the hatchling against his chest. It's okay, I've got you, he whispered. The creature's glow brightened, warm and steady, as if it understood. For a brief moment, the danger seemed to pause. But then the shadows shifted again. More predators appeared on the ridge above, eyes glowing like fire. Kai's stomach dropped. He was cornered. The hatchling hissed, small wings flaring, and Kai felt a strange warmth radiate from it. The air around them shimmered, and the glowing patterns on the hatchling's scales pulsed in time with its heartbeat. Kai realized the creature wasn't just scared, it was trying to defend them. He had no idea how, but he trusted it. He tightened his grip and took a deep breath, preparing for whatever came next. Suddenly, one of the predators charged into the water. The hatchling reacted instantly, letting out a pulse of energy. The water around them froze in an instant, sharp ice spikes shooting up, knocking the predator off balance. It scrambled, slipping and sliding, unable to reach them. Kai's eyes widened. The hatchling had powers he didn't understand, and it had just saved them. Kai didn't have time to wonder. The other predators were closing, circling the hollow. He scanned the trees and spotted a fallen branch that stretched across the water, a narrow bridge. It was dangerous, but it was their only way out. He clutched the hatchling and balanced carefully, one step at a time, feeling the wood wobble beneath him. The predators lunged, claws scraping, but the hatchling's glow intensified. Ice formed along the water, creating obstacles that slowed them. Kai's breath came in gasps. Every step felt like a gamble, but he kept moving forward, trusting his instincts and the creature beside him. Finally he reached the far side, tumbling onto solid ground. The hatchling pressed against him, wings shaking but alive. Kai gasped, relief and fear mixing in his chest. For a moment they were safe, but only barely. The predators roared from the water, frustrated but persistent, and the forest around them seemed to close in. Kai stood, brushing dirt from his clothes, holding the hatchling tightly. "We can't stop," he whispered. "Not yet." Above, the wind shifted. He felt it before he saw it, a low vibration that made the ground hum. The hatchling's glow brightened, pulsing urgently. Kai's eyes followed the light upward. Through the trees, he glimpsed movement in the sky, enormous and shadowed, watching them from above. A chill ran down his spine. Whatever was up there was bigger, faster, and smarter than the predators on the ground. And it was waiting. Kai tightened his grip on the hatchling, heart racing. "I don't know what I've gotten into," he thought, "but I won't let anything take you from me." The wind whispered through the trees, carrying a sound that sent shivers down his spine, a low, distant roar unlike anything he had ever heard. The forest seemed to hold its breath. And then, faintly, he thought he heard it again, the hatchling's voice, or was it the sky itself, calling his name? Kai pressed himself against the rough bark of a tree, panting. The predators below had retreated into the shadows of the forest, but the weight of what he had just seen, the shadow above, the strange roar, still pressed on him. The hatchling's soft hum vibrated against his chest, pulsing like a heartbeat he could feel. Its tiny claws dug lightly into his shirt, and its glowing eyes shifted from green to pale gold, almost as if it was trying to tell him something. He knew he couldn't stay in the hollow. The forest floor was too open, and the predators were still circling. He scanned the path ahead, noticing a steep rise that led to a ridge. It was risky, with loose rocks and uneven ground, but if he could reach the top he might gain a better view, and maybe a way out. He set his jaw and started moving, keeping low, branches whipping against his face. Halfway up, the hatchling squirmed, wings flaring. It let out a louder hum, higher in pitch, and Kai froze. Then he noticed something odd. The rocks beneath his feet had faint, icy patterns etched into them, glowing in the hatchling's light. Wherever the creature passed, the glow pulsed, forming shapes, lines, symbols, and strange runes Kai couldn't understand. "What are you doing?" he whispered, kneeling to look closer. He traced a finger along the glowing marks. When he touched one, it shimmered, sending a shiver up his arm. The hatchling chirped softly and pressed its tiny head against his hand. Kai realized it wasn't just glowing randomly. It was trying to communicate, or guide him somewhere. Suddenly the ground trembled. One of the predators had climbed partway up the ridge and now snarled from above, eyes like burning coals. Kai's heart leapt. He could hear the forest around him shifting, twigs snapping, shadows moving. He had to act. He noticed a hollowed-out tree leaning over a small drop. Using quick thinking, he placed the hatchling on the branch and made a careful dash toward the next cluster of rocks. The predator lunged, but the hatchling's glow flared brightly, and a thin layer of ice shot up from the branch. The predator yelped, claws skidding uselessly across the frozen surface. Kai reached the rocks, breathing hard. He glanced at the hatchling, now glowing pale gold, and realized something extraordinary. The creature's energy was reacting to the forest itself. The runes, the ice, even the wind, they seemed to respond to it. He climbed higher, following the glowing path the hatchling created. Soon he reached a plateau overlooking a frozen lake. The lake was covered with frost, but beneath the surface faint shapes moved, shapes that seemed carved into the ice itself like a frozen map. Kai knelt at the edge, tracing the lines with his fingers. They glowed faintly in response to the hatchling's light, forming a pattern that pointed toward the sky, toward the constellations above. What is this?" Kai whispered. The hatchling chirped and flapped its tiny wings, and a soft beam of green light shot from its eyes to the stars, tracing the lines of the constellations. Kai's mind raced. This wasn't just a forest creature, it was connected to something bigger, something ancient. Before he could think further, the air above him shifted. A massive shadow passed overhead, and Kai ducked instinctively. The creature froze midair. Then, without warning, the hatchling emitted a pulse of energy, sending a thin sheet of ice shooting across the lake. One of the predators that had been creeping along the shore stumbled, sliding helplessly into the frozen water. Kai's jaw dropped. He had no idea how the hatchling had done that, but it had saved them again. He picked up the creature and hugged it tightly, heart racing. The realization hit him. This small, fragile thing held power far beyond his understanding. Then came the unexpected twist. The runes on the ice suddenly shifted, glowing brighter and forming a new pattern, one that pointed toward a distant mountain. And there, faintly outlined against the night sky, was another glow, pulsing in rhythm with the hatchling's heartbeat. Something, or someone, was waiting there. Kai felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought the forest, the predators, and the shadow above were the danger, but now it was clear there was something bigger at play. The hatchling's glowing eyes met his, and for the first time, he felt like it understood him completely. It wasn't just a helpless creature. It was a guide, a key to something ancient and powerful. "All right," he whispered, determination hardening his voice. "We're going there. Together." He looked back at the frozen lake, the ice still glowing faintly, the predators scrambling to recover. Then he turned his gaze to the distant mountain, where the mysterious pulse awaited. Every instinct screamed danger, but he knew he had to move. Hesitation could mean the end, for him and for the hatchling. As he started down the slope to navigate around the lake, the forest suddenly went still. Not a sound of animals, not a whisper of wind, just an empty silence that pressed against his ears. And then he heard it, faint at first, a sound that made his stomach drop. A deep, echoing roar coming not from the forest but from the mountain itself. The hatchling's wings flared nervously, its glow intensifying. Kai pressed it closer, feeling the warmth of its tiny body, its pulse syncing with his own racing heartbeat. The roar came again, louder, more urgent, almost as if it was calling them forward, testing their courage. Kai swallowed hard, gripping the hatchling tightly. Every nerve in his body screamed fear, but he also felt a surge of something else. Courage, determination, the knowledge that he couldn't run. Not now. Not when he was so close to discovering what this creature, and the mountain, truly held. And just as he took a step forward, the ice on the lake suddenly cracked with a loud, jagged sound. A fissure spread quickly, glowing faintly green, and from the split, a shaft of light shot toward the sky, illuminating the constellations above. Kai's eyes widened. The hatchling stiffened in his arms, wings vibrating. And then, as the light reached the stars, he heard it clearly for the first time. Not a roar, not a cry, but a single resonant voice that seemed to echo in his mind. "Kai." The boy froze, heart hammering. The forest, the predators, the shadows, they were nothing compared to this. Something was calling him, and whatever it was, it expected him to answer. Kai's legs trembled as he stood at the edge of the plateau, holding the hatchling close. The distant mountain glowed faintly under the night sky, and the pulse of energy from the creature seemed to reach out, connecting with the stars above. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made every breath feel heavy and every heartbeat echo in his ears. Above, the sky shifted. Clouds roiled unnaturally, twisting into shapes that seemed alive. Lightning flashed, illuminating a massive shadow gliding silently between the stormed clouds. Kai's stomach dropped. He knew the shadow from before. It was bigger than any predator, faster than any creature he had ever seen. And now it was coming closer. The hatchling pressed against him, wings flaring weakly. Its glowing eyes fixed on the approaching shadow, then flicked to Kai as if demanding action. He tightened his grip and whispered, "We're not running. Not anymore." Kai scanned the plateau. The ground was uneven, but a cluster of jagged rocks rose like teeth at the center. If he could get there, he might be able to use the terrain to defend them. He sprinted toward the rocks, balancing on loose stones, feeling the hatchling's body quiver in his arms. The shadow above responded, diving low, wings slicing through the gusts of wind. As the predator descended, Kai thought fast. He remembered the pulse of energy the hatchling had sent through the ice before. Maybe it could do something again, but he needed a plan. He placed the hatchling on a flat rock, letting it cling to his chest with its small claws, and stepped back. "Do it," he whispered. "Show me." The hatchling's glow intensified. Green light spilled across the plateau, and the air seemed to hum. Kai felt a warmth radiate from its tiny body, like a shield forming around them. Then, instinctively, the hatchling flapped its wings, sending a surge of energy straight up toward the sky. The massive shadow above halted midair, wings trembling as the energy pulse hit it. A bright beam shot from the hatchling to the clouds, splitting the stormy sky like a spear of light. Kai felt the ground vibrate under his feet. The predator shrieked, a sound that rattled the bones, and then faltered, hovering uncertainly. Kai didn't wait. He climbed onto a higher rock, balancing carefully, and shouted, "We're not afraid." His voice echoed across the plateau. The hatchling responded, letting out a high, resonant hum that seemed to mingle with the wind. The light pulse grew brighter, casting strange, moving patterns across the jagged rocks. Then the most unexpected thing happened. The clouds above parted slightly, revealing a streak of stars that aligned perfectly with the pulse from the hatchling. Kai watched, eyes wide, as the light beam seemed to connect the hatchling to the constellations themselves. The shadow above hesitated, wings trembling, caught between the glowing energy and the vast sky. Kai realized what the hatchling was doing. It wasn't just defending them, it was calling to something bigger, something ancient. He felt awe mixed with fear. He had never seen a human or creature command the sky like this. And yet, he also knew that whatever responded could be dangerous. The hatchling's wings flared wider, and the pulse of light shot upward again, stronger this time. The predator tried to dive toward them, but the energy wrapped around it like a cage. Kai felt the wind whip violently, the roar of the storm drowning out everything else, but still he held his ground. Then came the moment that made his heart stop. From the streak of stars, a figure descended, a vast creature unlike anything Kai had ever imagined. Its body shimmered like liquid silver, wings spreading wide, eyes glowing with ancient intelligence. It landed softly behind the shadow predator, sending a shockwave that flattened nearby rocks. The smaller predator hissed, backing away powerless. Kai's jaw dropped. The hatchling pressed against him, trembling but not with fear. Its glow pulsed rapidly, like a heartbeat matching the new creature. Kai realized the two were connected, and suddenly, everything made sense. The hatchling's cry had called this being, and now it had arrived to intervene. Kai swallowed hard, feeling a surge of courage. He stepped forward, holding the hatchling high. "We're not your enemies," he shouted. "We're just trying to survive." The silver creature tilted its massive head, eyes scanning Kai. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then slowly it lowered one massive wing and the storm above began to calm. The predator, trapped beneath the hatchling's light and the creature's presence, slithered back into the shadows. Kai exhaled, relief washing over him, but he didn't relax. The forest around him was still tense, the night alive with unseen dangers. He hugged the hatchling tightly, feeling its warmth and tiny heartbeat against his chest. For the first time he understood that courage wasn't about fighting blindly, it was about acting with intelligence, compassion, and determination, even against impossible odds. The hatchling chirped softly, wings flaring once more, and Kai felt a strange warmth pulse through him. The silver creature above lifted into the sky, letting out a low, resonant sound that echoed like music. The stars above shimmered, aligning with the pulse of energy in a way that made the forest glow faintly. Kai looked at the hatchling. "We did it," he whispered. But even as he spoke, he noticed a faint movement on the distant mountain, the same pulse he had seen before. Someone, or something, was still waiting. The night was far from over. The wind carried a distant, echoing roar, but this time it wasn't just a threat, it was a call. Kai felt it deep in his chest. The hatchling pressed against him, wings quivering, and Kai knew they were being summoned to the next challenge. He squared his shoulders, gripping the hatchling tightly. "All right," he whispered, voice firm. "Let's find out who's calling us." Above, the stars shimmered, the pulse of light connecting forest, hatchling, and sky. And for the first time, Kai understood that this was only the beginning. The forest, the predators, the storm, they were just the first test. Something greater waited ahead, and whatever it was, it would test both human courage and the hatchling's power. Kai took a deep breath, feeling fear, awe, and determination in equal measure. The sky had answered. Now it was his turn to rise to the challenge. Kai stood on the plateau, the hatchling still pressed tightly against his chest. The silver creature had vanished into the sky, leaving behind only the soft glow of stars reflected in the frozen lake below. The forest around him was quiet, almost peaceful now, but the memory of predators, shadows, and the storm still lingered in his mind. His legs ached and his chest burned from the adrenaline, but he felt a strange warmth inside, a mix of awe, relief, and pride. He looked down at the hatchling. Its wings flapped weakly, but its glowing eyes were steady now, shifting from gold back to green. It seemed to recognize him, as if it understood that he had risked everything to protect it. Kai smiled faintly. "You're safe," he whispered. "We made it." The hatchling chirped softly, a sound that made him realize just how small and fragile it was, yet how brave. It had fought alongside him in ways he didn't fully understand. He felt a wave of admiration. Despite its size, its courage and intelligence had matched and even surpassed his own at times. He realized that humans and creatures like this could achieve more together than either could alone. Kai began the careful trek back through the forest. He kept the hatchling close, letting it cling to his chest while he navigated over roots and fallen branches. Every now and then he glanced at the glowing runes on the rocks and trees. They were faint now, responding to the hatchling's calming presence. Each step felt like a small victory, a reminder that intelligence, quick thinking and compassion could survive even the wildest dangers. As he walked, Kai reflected on the events of the night. The predators had been fierce, but his actions, the traps, the careful paths, the use of the hatchling's abilities, had mattered. Every decision had a consequence and every risk had been worth it. He understood now that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was acting despite fear, using the mind and heart together to protect what mattered. When he reached the edge of the forest, the first light of dawn touched the treetops. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, the clouds drifting like soft waves. The hatchling chirped again, and Kai noticed that the glow in its eyes reflected the colors of the sky. He felt a swell of hope. Maybe this was a sign that their journey had just begun, that the world beyond the forest had a place for both humans and creatures like this. Villagers were starting to appear in the distance, drawn by the strange lights and sounds from the night. They froze when they saw him standing on the ridge, holding the glowing creature. Kai realized that his courage had not only saved the hatchling but had also revealed something extraordinary to his people. They whispered among themselves, eyes wide, some stepping closer, others holding back in awe. "Kai," a voice called. His mother emerged from the crowd, worry etched across her face. Kai smiled, holding the hatchling up gently so she could see. "We're okay," he said. "Both of us." She looked at him, then at the creature, then back at him, her worry giving way to astonishment. I don't understand," she said. "What is that?" Kai shrugged, a small smile on his face. "I don't fully understand either. But it needs help and I couldn't leave it." The villagers whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others looking at him with newfound respect. Kai realized that, in their eyes, he had become more than a boy gathering herbs. He had become someone who had stood against impossible odds and protected life, even when he didn't know if he could succeed. For a while he simply walked with the hatchling, letting the villagers follow at a distance. He watched the first rays of the sun glint off its scales, and he felt a quiet pride. Courage, intelligence, compassion, these were not just words. They were actions, and tonight he had lived them fully. As the morning grew brighter, the hatchling flapped its wings tentatively, then chirped, and Kai felt it pulse with energy. The runes in the forest faintly glowed once more, pointing toward the distant mountains. Kai's heart raced. He realized the silver creature from before, the one that had descended from the stars, wasn't gone, it had only paused. Something larger awaited, something ancient and powerful, connected to the hatchling and the pulse in the mountains. He looked down at the small creature in his arms. "We're not finished yet," he whispered. "There's more we need to discover, together." The hatchling chirped again, soft but insistent, and Kai felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew that whatever lay ahead would test both of them in ways he could not yet imagine. But for the first time he felt ready. Not because he was fearless, but because he had courage, intelligence, and heart, human strengths that no predator, shadow, or storm could take away. As the villagers began to move toward the village, Kai paused, looking at the distant mountains. A faint glow pulsed rhythmically from their peaks, like a heartbeat in the sky. The hatchling's eyes matched the rhythm, wings twitching with anticipation. Kai gripped it firmly, determination hardening his jaw. The sky above shimmered, stars twinkling faintly despite the morning light. And for a moment, Kai felt the same call he had heard in the forest earlier in the night, the same resonant voice that seemed to echo not just in the trees, but in his own mind. He took a deep breath, chest swelling with courage. He didn't know what awaited them, but he knew one thing: they would face it together. The hatchling chirped one last time, and Kai felt the energy pulse through him. A journey had begun, a path that stretched far beyond the forest, beyond the mountains, and toward mysteries older than the stars themselves. Kai squared his shoulders and whispered, "Let's go." Above the forest, faint ripples of light danced across the sky. Something powerful, unseen, waited. And Kai knew this was only the beginning of an adventure that would test the limits of human courage, intelligence, and compassion.